Okay. All right. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much indeed for your time and attention today. My name is Richard Jackson, and together with my colleague here, Dominic Feenan, we'd like to present our thoughts and quite a personal view, I guess, on what we believe makes a really great branded e-commerce experience. Now, first up, I guess, what do we mean by that? We mean that it's really important to understand the place and importance a brand has in delivering a meaningful and relevant, appropriate shopping experience for the end customer. We mean understanding how that brand interacts with the customer in a particular context, be that place or time, and how using appropriate technology will enhance that connection between the brand and the consumer. We are Magento e-commerce specialists, so naturally we'll be talking and showing some examples that are taken from the Magento e-commerce ecosystem. But really the central theme to what we want to explore today is how brand, context and technology interact with each other to provide a great end-user experience. But more of that later. I'm pretty much guessing by now you might have realised that the accent is not native to this part of the world. So, yep, the Brits are coming. Thankfully, not these Brits. So I guess as the sole UK Magento representatives presenting at Innovate this year, we must start by giving particular thanks to the team at PayPal in the UK and the US for the invitation to speak and to share our thoughts on the fascinating subject of e-commerce. So thank you for that. Dominic and I are directors of Session Digital, the UK's leading Magento implementation partner. And just in case there's any confusion, we weren't actually in the Spice Girls, although there is could easily be assumed so. But anyway, there is in case you're wondering, there is a connection between the Spice Girls and the basic topic of our presentation today, so we'll come to that later. As I say, it's quite a personal view of what we think makes a great branded e-commerce experience. It is quite UK European-centric. We're based in central London. We have a team of 75 Magento specialists. We work with UK and European customers. And part of what we'd like to get across today is a little bit of that European perspective, but mainly to highlight some examples of sites that have fully considered and embraced the role of brand in their e-commerce experience. And the reason why we think that's important, I mean, some brand owners or people who sell online, to put it very simply, seem to regard e-commerce as somehow less creative or a less branded channel with which to operate. And maybe that's in comparison to something like a promotional microsite that you put up to support a TV campaign, for example. And that view is that the e-commerce function is solely a functional one. It's kind of widgets and analytics and navigation and plugins and technology. And of course it is, but we believe that this sometimes has meant that brand engagement can take a back seat in favour of technology. So why the Spice Girls? Well, love them or loathe them, and personally I loathe them. They certainly understood the value of brand and its role in promoting and selling products. And that's certainly a point of view that we would agree with. So what is our approach to e-commerce? Well, as I say, Session Digital and Magento Enterprise or Gold partners, we've worked with the team at Magento since the first community release, which is over 4.5 years now, I think. And we've deployed a range of sites for a range of customers, large and small, in a range of different sectors. So we have a wealth of experience with the platform itself. On the team, we have a core contributor to Magento. We have a couple of people who are on the development certification board that's just been announced over the course of Innovate. But mainly, we don't have any other focus. We just look at, from creative, strategy, project management, testing, whatever, it's all for one single purpose, which is Magento e-commerce. So our mission really is to bring brand expertise and enterprise-level creative and development practices to Magento in the UK. So our view of the e-commerce world, really, I mean, it always starts with brand. Who are the customers? Where do they shop? What kind of relationship should they have with the brand? What kind of technologies and services will enhance that relationship? We look at insight as well. So, how do consumers search? How do they arrive at this website in the first place? What are they looking for? And how can we engage and interact and convert them? Creatively, we take a lot of care and attention in hopefully translating these brand values into site structure, creative presentation, user interface, whatever it might be required. And of course, underpinning all of this is technology, the correct application of it, the correct selection of it, be that behavioral merchandising or Facebook integration. It should all come back to a simple key question: how does this enhance the relationship between the brand and the consumer? So, a selection of current customers: fashion, niche, retail, business to business, a variety of industries and markets. But there's one thing that holds all of these guys together, and it's that they take their brands very, very seriously. And when they engage our services, they're entrusting their brands to us, in effect. So we've got to get it right. So at this point, I'd like to hand you over to Dominic for a second.
Hi, guys. Thanks, Rich. One of the things we often get asked is what makes great e-commerce. Is it the right product? Is it the best price? Maybe it's some clever merchandising, or even some strong marketing. It could be something around the innovative user interfaces that you're about to deploy, or maybe about customer care or a seamless back-office integration. Yep, these individually and collectively are all really quite important. But to our experience is that the single most important factor is getting the brand experience right. In order to get it right, great e-commerce needs to get the right mix of three principal pillars: brand, context, and technology. At a fundamental level, any e-commerce experience needs to form that connection between customer and brand. In brand experience terms, e-commerce acts like any other touch point where the customer connects and interacts with the brand in a particular context using technology to support the experience. Before we move on to explore the importance of this brand interaction, it's worth reminding ourselves a little bit about what makes a brand. So why do you choose one product over the other? Simple. They've formed a connection with you that you believe in. Brands are all about an emotional connection. They build equity through establishing a strong identity that forms a connection with the values it promotes and the consumer. So Nike, just do it, or Nike, sorry, in the US. What's that saying about the brand? Throughout all their marketing, what they're not talking about are individual products or their attributes. Instead, they're making us believe their brand is all about achievement. They're positioning themselves as the company that helps you achieve, that backs winners, that backs the motivated individual. Why do people choose Nike? Is it because they make the best trainers or sportswear? No, it's because the brand says something about the person choosing it. And that person wants to align themselves with these values. They want to be winners. So moving on to another brand. Oh. Kind of spoiled that one. Coke, open happiness. What is that saying about the brand? Well, Coke could have been very literal. It's brown, sweet, fizzy. And on Coke's marketing, there's no mention of taste, price, shelf life, or any other attributes. Instead, we have a rather more inspiring strapline of Coke, open happiness. They're connecting their brand to the consumer on a personal and emotional level. Coke is inclusive. It's sharing. Coke drinkers are happy people. If it gains traction, this is powerful stuff. A strong brand connection can drive aspiration, loyalty, trust, and advocacy, and ultimately can lead to great success. Without even needing to talk about the products, both Coke and Nike can feed their success through maintaining that brand equity. Companies go to considerable expense and effort to create and maintain their brand. All too often, we've seen poor brand experiences in the e-commerce world, where technology and function appear to be the main driver, where the brand has taken a backseat and customer expectations have not been met. The devotion shown here by Homer is something most brand owners can only dream of. But Homer's e-commerce experience of the brand therefore must reflect the brand values and reinforce Homer's connection to it. I guess one can only imagine what Duff would produce as an e-commerce experience for Homer. But nevertheless, developers and innovators of the technology working in any e-commerce context need to understand these brand drivers and values. Only by doing so can they open up new opportunities through the innovation of relevant technology. This means not viewing technology as the driver. This means instead innovating around the needs of the brand connection. So we can start to see how technology is important, but brand is fundamental. And with this in mind, how does technology fit in with this need to support the brand experience? Rich.
So, just touching on that technology point, we believe the best way to adapt or implement new technology is just to take a step back and explore the basic drivers behind the project in the first place. Everybody involved in a project must take a reality check and ask a simple question. How is this new technology or this new functionality going to enhance my consumer's branded experience? What does the business in question hope to achieve by implementing it? What do their customers want from this online experience? And how can the technology ultimately enhance that connection between the brand and the consumer? And on the flip side of that, you could argue, is this a case of technology for technology's sake? Does company X really truly need that iPhone app that their development agency has been so keen to promote? Will it resonate with their customers? Should this company be running a social media campaign? Do they have the bandwidth to manage it and make it meaningful? Will their customers believe it's credible that the MD really wants to connect with them on Twitter? Of course, many companies get it right and do it really well, but unfortunately we see plenty who don't. And perhaps like this particular Swiss Army knife, we believe that the technology solution should not be over-engineered. So our view is that technology is an enabler. It doesn't constrain, limit, or dictate how a brand should be represented online. Why should a brand owner not be able to effectively communicate their proposition because the e-commerce platform they use simply can't support it, or they can't get it done quick enough, or it costs too much money, or that the marketing team can't leverage some of the advantages from social media that they would want to because, again, the platform is too inflexible? So we favour platforms like Magento that embody some core principles that match our approach. And those things are openness, flexibility, community, evolution, all of the same attributes that X-Commerce is adopting. And we prefer to describe Magento not as an e-commerce solution, but rather it's a framework for commerce. And on top of that, we can apply principles and attributes that our customers need. This gives our customers the foundation and framework of a functional e-commerce transactional site. That's great. But with the flexibility to customize and build a store that really meets their needs. Oh, that's an interesting jump, sorry. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, so actually now might be a good time to have a look at some of the headlines from the X-Commerce Pledge that's been promoted this conference. It sits perfectly with what we believe and what our customers need and ask from us. So I'm guessing you can all read, so I won't repeat verbatim what it says here. Rather, it's a nice, neat way of saying, hey, we're not constrained. Tell us what you want and we can deliver it for you. And that's a very, very appealing message for retailers and people like us equally. Okay, so one of the, that piece there, we believe in helping all merchants and developers compete and ultimately make more money faster. I think that's what it all boils down to, really, if you're running an e-commerce operation, and we all want to make money for ourselves and our customers. So I guess while we're on that topic, I'm hoping that you've all signed up to the pledge. It's going to be an exciting journey. Okay, so hopefully we've stated our belief that open frameworks and technologies provide a flexible foundation on which merchants can deliver a branded e-commerce experience. That's all very well, but is it a reality? Well, here's some stats for you to illustrate how attractive the Magento open approach to e-commerce has been. There's well over 2 million downloads of the community software so far, well over 2,500 now published extensions into the community. More than 100,000 merchants of all shapes and sizes use Magento e-commerce now, and they're adding over 100 new merchants every month on the enterprise platform. As far back as 2008, a staggering 25 billion in transaction revenue was taken across all Magento stores. And that's actually more than Amazon that year. And the pace of growth is simply phenomenal. I mean, we've seen it from day one, and it's the fastest growing e-commerce platform in the world. And it just, the growth seems kind of unabated. And of course now the positioning of Magento as a key component within X-Commerce will take it to the next level. So Magento today is rightly recognized as the platform for growth. And this platform is supported in a number of ways, with an ecosystem of services and partners built around a customer's individual needs, a wide range of plugins from the community, and a wide range of specialist partners as well. And that's very important, but we think it's quite equally important to state what we believe it is not. And when we talk to customers, we don't say Magento Enterprise is a ready-made solution that you can just switch on and run with. Actually, there's a lot of configuration, design, customization, thinking about the brand interaction. All of that is needed before it can be released into the wild as a live e-commerce store. But it does have an extremely competitive licensing model, and why that's important is it means that there's more funds left for development, marketing, promotions, whatever might be required in order to deliver branded e-commerce. And so really, however unusual your store is, and however unique you want it to be, the ethos is we can make it in Magento. So we'd like to illustrate our view with some examples, hopefully better than the town dump there. Some of these examples are our work, some aren't. But we've chosen them because we believe they illustrate what we see, nice examples of how brand, the context in which that transaction is being encouraged, and technology can be brought together. So first up, Dom is going to run through brand experience and the role of user interface.
Okay. We've picked two fashion retailers here. Been working with them for a little while now. And this is to illustrate how different brand experience has resulted in a different approach online. Firstly, Kookai. It's a French fashion brand operating predominantly in the UK and France. Kookai's offering is really about quality fashion. It's designed in-house, but it is quite mainstream. They're pitching themselves as affordable, timeless chic. The values that they're trying to promote are accessibility, femininity, quality, chic, effortless, and ease of wear. Here you can see a category page for Kukai. Note the large real estate given over to the product is there to provide an accessibility and demonstrates a confidence in the quality. The use of space conveys a chic feel and reinforces that quality. The style and consistency of the photography demonstrates an effortlessness and the ease of wear. The ethos here is, this is you. It's like presenting a mirror to the customer, where they can see themselves reflected through the brand of Kukai. Little touches can reinforce the brand's connection. We purposefully kept the text content to a minimum, as we wanted the product imagery to do the talking. Again, it's all about using the tools that are there in the brand values in order to accentuate that brand and its connection with the customer. So small features such as this roll-up that you can see highlighted there reveal the product detail without requiring the customer to click through to the product page. This sits very well with the principles of ease of use and accessibility. It's not really a revolution, but the approach taken here represents the brand experience the customer expects and can identify with, and has had good results. So here's another brand, Acne Studios, Swedish fashion house. It's uber trendy, edgy clothes from Sweden, one of the world's leading fashion brands with attitude and a price to match. There's a heavy focus here on status, on style, on the exclusivity. It's almost inaccessible in some ways. Here we see a category page for Acne. It's aspirational and exclusive rather than accessible. You might aspire to be like this, is what they're saying. It's for trendsetters. It's not for followers. It's almost your alter ego. It has very few of the standard facets of e-commerce as well. Throughout the site, there's a distinct lack of encouragement or assistance, and I suppose in relative terms. Acne are 100% justified, though. Their audience are very tech-savvy, very switched-on crowd. They're happy with the exclusiveness and with the experience that they're going to get online. It's extremely minimal. Those dots are how you select the products. So again, we're still on a category page here, and those dots appear around the products, and that's how you select the products. A notable absence is the inclusion of any upsell or cross-sell or other merchandising techniques that are familiar with so many other retail e-commerce sites. The site's a perfect example of branded e-commerce, the expression of the brand and its values. This isn't for everyone. You're going to have to shop more on our terms than on your terms. You've got to be a member of the club. So Rich is going to take over and talk you through a little bit of the contextualization of e-commerce.
Thanks, Tom. Okay. So, ubiquitous social marketing and how that fits into our e-commerce world. The Levi Friends store, not one of ours in terms of projects. Wish it was, but maybe one day. A really great example of context, we think. This brand understands the role that social plays in creating and nurturing that connection with their consumers. And it's a thoughtfully implemented example of Facebook where it leverages sales, and it's not just done simply because a marketing manager somewhere thought that they needed Facebook as a channel because everybody else does. So in terms of traditional e-commerce store, you get to the store, looks fairly standard, browsable experience like most others, you know, nice product shots, well merchandised, so far so normal. But within the navigation structure, you can enter the Friends store and you get a different view. And the e-commerce experience now is beginning to show some of the contextual elements that bring the brand closer to the context that its consumers will readily identify with. And this is social and sharing and advocacy and recommendation. So some standard Facebook widgets pull into the page to demonstrate what's popular now across the whole network. But if you take that step further and log in via your Facebook profile, you get a further customized view that shows what your circle of friends have liked. And of course, you'll be encouraged to like and post it onto your wall, which brings back more advocacy, more like-minded consumers into the brand. But whenever you click the product images within the Facebook widgets, it takes you to the product page of the e-com store. And I think they've done a great job there in terms of using social channels to get the excitement going, get the interest, but then drive them back into the main branded entity, which is the e-commerce store. And that way they get the benefit of communicating and recruiting consumers via the social channel, but it's incorporated back into the main site to complete the purchase. Again, perhaps not revolutionary, but I think it's a really nice execution. Warner Music. I mean, I'm guessing everybody in the room is familiar with Warner Music and will know many of their artists and output. But clearly, you know, hundreds of artists, a massive back catalogue. But they're a global company with a local market focus. And really, Warner are trying to bring music to the consumer as they might want it, on the consumer's terms. And this is really in light of the fact that the music industry has changed so fundamentally over the last 5 years. Minimum. I mean, these days music is viewed increasingly as a commodity that can be consumed in a variety of formats chosen by the consumer. The major labels have had a bit of a rude awakening really over the last few years, because the old models which they dominated are long dead and buried, basically, really being replaced with nimbler and more customer-centric business models like Spotify. So the large labels have seen a huge shift in power, really, from them to the hands of the artist and the consumer. And the technology advancements have basically acted as a great leveler. So some of the big labels used to be able to leverage their power and scale. Now actually they're a lot more vulnerable to smaller competitors who use technology in a very smart way. So kind of back in 2009, the team at Warner recognized that they needed to strengthen the relationship that they have directly with the customers. And that would be take great strides in countering some of the changes that the music industry was facing. Now, here's a selection of artists that are supported on the Magento Enterprise platform across Europe. Each artist is a brand in its own right, and the presentation of those brands should be understood and reflected in the e-commerce experience. They were pretty savvy and realized that putting everything under the banner of Warner Music wouldn't excite the fans of the artists in the same way as having a dedicated site for Green Day, for example. And running across this platform, there's a huge catalogue of products: physical CDs, digital music, ticketing, merchandising, fan clubs, a whole range. And it runs across the UK, Spain, Germany, France, Italy. We think it's the largest Magento deployment in Europe at the moment. But the point of it is that the local markets can act with a little bit of local context. So if the Italian marketing department want to promote a particular artist in a particular way, this platform should give them the ability to do that. And by putting control into the hands of the consumers, it has helped deliver a branded e-commerce experience for the fans to get closer to their favourite artists. It's been done in a phased sense as well. So although the project launched 18 months ago, probably slightly longer now, there's been a rolling programme of additions and features, enriching that connection over time. So the consumers get more and more out of these direct relationships with the brands. So kind of online, that's catered for. That's great. You know, as I mentioned, there's a rolling program that's added more features and functions over time. So what's next? Well, we see the next big opportunity for this particular platform as the mobile, and the context here is obviously the gig environment. So throughout these massive changes in the music industry, the saviour really has been the live gig experience. Touring bands generate a huge amount of revenue for labels, and so the gig environment should be the ideal context for the artist to use technology to engage with its audience. But obviously not via the web browser, but through smartphones. And this can be in the form of QR codes projected at onto the stage backdrop. So when that's scanned, the consumer gets some added value, exclusive tracks, exclusive downloads, money off discounts to use at the artist store when the gig's finished. Or actually order it now at the beginning of the gig and it'll be ready for you the next day when you return. Now, all of this can be delivered through extending the existing infrastructure and flexible e-commerce platform that Magento offers them. So again, it's kind of coming back to the key observation of brand and content, context and technology working together. Okay, so I think that's it. That's it for me for now. I'll hand you back to Dom to finish.
Thanks. So just going to have a look at that's something a little bit different to that. One of the notable shifts we've seen recently is in the B2B world of e-commerce. Previously, it's an industry that's been dominated by service levels or function, value, efficiency, and, in 3663's case, cutthroat price competition. In response, companies like 3663 have started to shift their focus away from the traditional B2B view and are starting to leverage the brand more in line with the techniques borrowed from the B2C world. In doing so, they've separated themselves from competing solely on a more functional level of product and price, perhaps, and are able to start trading on the brand equity. 3663 was a fairly traditional food logistics business with trucks, warehouses, and tens of thousands of customers across the UK. These range from the guy who runs the local burger bar to local government departments, schools, prisons, or hotel chains. In a nutshell, they supply and deliver huge volumes of food around the UK from their 20 depots. But in an industry that is extremely price-orientated, 3663 recognized they needed to shift focus and invest in one of their key brand values, service. So some core aims there for them were to streamline the management overhead of managing so many smaller customers, and also counter the constant threat of price-driven competition and hold on to customers for longer. They need to bring added value to the customer and drive that brand relevance. They needed to align themselves with the context in which the customer interacts with their brand. They wanted to reinforce the brand-consumer connection. A central feature to providing a better service is to provide more relevance to the customer. Two examples of where their focus has been on have been merchandising and regionalization. The merchandising not only offers the opportunity to provide a better shopping experience for the customer, it also helps to maximize 3663's margins through better targeting of products and services. Customers can also take charge of the products they need to order and when by managing multiple lists with recurring orders and all sorts of tools that as a business they need. Regionalization is also key. Here you're looking at one of the individual depots' homepage. The context of the customer matters to the experience they receive. Depots drive their own special offers to fit in with the regional variations and locally sourced food. Information is managed and presented at a localized level. The customer builds a relationship with the depot, as that is where their brand experience is. By considering the context in which the customer operate, they've also looked for ways to add value throughout various touch points to make themselves relevant to their customers in a wider context than simply supplying food. Quality content and thought leadership help connect customers to the brand. In this case, a blog that provides a platform for sharing ideas with their customers. For example, recipes and one-click add to basket features, local upcoming events a pub may wish to cater for. To extend this contextualized approach even further is to look more closely at how their customers might be able to interact with the brand throughout their day. For instance, when doing a stock check and needing to reorder supplies, they could be using a mobile app to check off stock and add it to their list. Or when designing a menu for the week, to be able to give ideas based upon fresh local produce 363 have access to. So there's also the personalized communication to consider. This is a continuation of that connection beyond the e-commerce experience. Again, this reinforces the relevance and the context. With personalized product ranges, prices, dynamic product recommendations based upon their habits and preferences, an expert opinion and seasonal ideas, these are all things which their customers are looking for, and 3663 can provide. All of this is segmented by the specific audience and the region. Whilst all of these techniques are well understood and perhaps not revolutionary, it was only by understanding how their customers were interacting with the brand that 3663 were able to make the right choices as to the tools and technology to deploy so as to enhance that brand experience in the context of where their customers were actually experiencing it. So, I hope today we've been able to show you about the importance of considering how brand drives that customer experience and the choices of technology you deploy. Many sites fail because the technology has been allowed to take center stage, and they've lost that connection with the brand. To deliver a great brand experience, it requires a respect of the brand in the context you're delivering it before applying the appropriate technology to support it. So thanks a lot for your time today, and we'll be happy to answer any questions, or alternatively, come up afterwards and have a chat.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions at all? No, guy at the front, yeah?
Most of your clients branding agencies, or are they the companies themselves?
No, our customers are the end user, the end client. And I think one of the things that we try to do is concentrate as much on that branded communication part as the technology that drives the experience as well. So we kind of describe ourselves as a full service offering within an e-commerce context. I mean, it's you know, some agencies operating within Magento will just focus on the technical aspects, some will just focus on the UI, but we try and bring it together into one whole piece. So that's kind of the approach that we take.
Yeah, I think different customers have different experiences with managing their own brand as well. So one of the functions that we provide is actually taking on some of that expertise and giving them a lot of help with developing their brand. They've been very siloed in their approach to delivering brand. So that's a kind of a core distinction at the start of any engagement with a customer, to understand, you know, where are they with their brand and how much do they understand.
Hi.
Hi.
I have a question regarding the success of the Kokai store.
Yeah.
How successful is it, and did it meet your expectations?
Well, the UK store launched in November, and the French store came online maybe 6 weeks ago?
2 months ago.
2 months ago. So obviously, in terms of initial figures, etc., that's not something that we could divulge anyway. I'm sure you appreciate that. But I think in terms of, you know, being perfectly honest, there are always some teething issues within projects. I think from a brand and impact perspective, it's been very well received. I think the transaction volumes are higher now than pre-launch. But it's very early days with them, so before we really try and turn on the taps in terms of promotion and how we drive consumers to that, or how they will do that, we need to ensure that the functionality is bedded in and it's working smoothly. So I guess it's early days. Hi.
Hi, can you comment a little bit on how you quantify things like impact of brand? Versus, we've heard a lot from other sessions about the role of data in making decisions about customer interaction. It's obviously much more difficult to do that if you're taking a brand-centric approach, and I'd love to hear what you how you address that with your clients, or what you mean by impact at a time of launch.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you're right. It is very often quite an intangible thing. I think that the nature of this presentation today has been to try and convey how important we believe the role of brand is in delivering an e-commerce experience. The measurement of that impact depends an awful lot on how strong the brand is in the first place. So, we apply the usual site metrics to performance, but the tangible, how have we improved the brand in the eyes of the consumer? I mean, you have to resort to standard methods like surveys, user panels, things like that, because it is quite an intangible, unmeasurable piece in a lot of ways. Does that answer the question, or is there?
No, not really. If you believe that brand is a central piece of the success of the e-commerce storefront, how do you quantify that? If it's surveys, you're quantifying some aspects of it. You're looking for some feedback or variables from the consumer that you can use as evidence. And have you found that surveys is an effective way to do it? And what questions are you asking consumers to quantify the impact of this type of approach?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's much more around is the experience that they have when they get to the e-commerce store commensurate with their view of what the brand experience should be? And I think one of the points that we were trying to make was, actually, if you don't pay attention to that, then there's potentially a disconnect between how the consumer, what they think they are going to get when they get to the store, and then actually the experience that they receive once they've got there. But measurement of that is, as I say, it's quite an intangible thing.
How do you adjust for localization of the brand across markets? I think especially in Europe. Do you find that the same brand needs to play a little bit differently, let's say in France versus UK? And if so, is there a standard way to think about that? And
there is a degree of variation. Europe isn't sort of quite homogenized, at least not yet. I think one of the key considerations is what's the perception of the brand in any one of those markets at the point at which you're going to be launching something new. You may decide not to launch certain things in certain markets because the brand there wouldn't support it. And I think with the Kookay experience, actually, Kookay used to be in the UK on the high street back in the late 80s and early 90s. They retreated from the high street and ended up in concession stores only. So the brand there had taken a slightly different meaning for customers within the UK than it did in France. And one of the things that we had to do was try and understand, well, what is the difference between the Kookay customer view in the UK versus where it is in France. France, it's a very powerful brand. In the UK, it needed a lot of help to then regenerate that brand. So the approach was slightly different in the UK, and the sorts of things that we launched with in the UK was slightly different to that with Kookay France.
Okay. Any other thoughts, questions at all? Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for your time and attention, and enjoy the rest of the conference.